In this segment, we'll look at improving images with exposure and lighting issues. Be sure and download the work files from this video's product page before beginning these tutorials. Among the problems we'll be correcting in this segment are underexposure, which are images that are too dark, mixed exposure. We have two examples that are a mix of underexposed and good areas. We have one example of mixed, which is good and overexposed or too light, and dehazing. After launching Photoshop Elements, let's make sure it's in the expert mode before starting this lesson. We'll work on our first image. It'll be this picture of this small dog with the file name shown. The first thing we'll do is make a duplicate of the background layer. To do that, we right-click and then click Duplicate Layer. Then we'll rename it to differentiate it from the original background layer. I name it Work Layer. Now we want to add an adjustment layer. We do that by going to Layer, New Adjustment Layer, and we'll pick Levels. And when the dialog pops up, we'll click the OK button. Now what we see is a histogram, and a histogram is a graphical representation of the tonal range within this image. It starts at 0 being black and goes all the way to 255, which is white. Everything in between is a shade of gray. And we can compensate for this lack of tonal information by dragging the white slider to the left, stopping just short of where the hill starts to a value of about 182. Now we can see the image is still maybe a little bit too dark. We can fix this by taking the midtone slider and moving it slightly to the left to a value of about 126. And let me look at it for just a second. That looks good to me, and I think I'll stay with those settings. And to close the dialog box, you just click the X button that's on the upper right. Now, when you've completed your lessons, if you want to keep it for future reference, you can save it as a PSD file, which would be Save. And over here you see the Photoshop PSD PDD. PDD is an older file format for some of Adobe's older products, and you can save it. Or if you don't want to keep it, you can just simply close the file out when you've finished. Now we have an image with a mix of dark and good areas, some harsh shadows that I want to bring detail out in. So let's make a duplicate of the background layer. And I'm going to use the Enhance, Adjust Lighting, Shadows, Highlights dialog. Now by default, the light and shadow setting is set to 35%, and I'm playing with it here a little bit, but I think I'll leave it at the default setting. I do want to darken the highlights just a bit where the sunlight's hitting the path. I want to bring some detail out in those areas a little bit, and I'm going to try the contrast, but I think I'll wind up just leaving it set to 0. Then click OK, and then toggle the layer visibility on and off, and we can see quite a difference. In this image, we see a very dark, harsh shadow cast on the outside wall of this church. So let's go ahead and duplicate the background layer. We'll right-click, Duplicate Layer, and rename it Work Layer. And then click OK. Now, we'll call up that same dialog that we used before. We'll go to Enhance, Adjust Lighting, Shadows, Highlights, and we can see the default setting did brighten it up a little bit. Because this is such a harsh shadow, let's go ahead and take it all the way up to 100%, and that looks quite a bit better. Now we can see that the color on this brick wall is a little pale compared to the areas that were not under that shadow, so I want to even that out a little bit. So let's go up to the Create New Layer icon and click that, and we'll set the color blend mode, or the blend mode rather, to color, and let's rename it Add Color. Now I want to zoom in here. What I want to do is sample some of this color using the color picker tool. It looks like an eyedropper, and using the 5x5 average, that'll sample an area that's an average of 5 pixels by 5 pixels. And we'll click somewhere in here, and your color should, you'll see it change in the set foreground color. It should look something like that. And now we'll click on the brush tool icon, and I already have the diameter at 125 pixels, which is good to start. Now we can see the color is rather bright, but don't worry, it won't stay that way for long. But I want to leave it that way for now so I can see where I'm applying it. And you can use the left or right bracket keys to decrease and increase the brush. The left bracket decreases, the right bracket increases. So I'll work in here a little bit, and I'll work on it and fade this video out and return in a little bit. Okay, now I'm back and I have applied most of the color, but I want to zoom in a little bit using the zoom tool and get in some of these tight areas that I overlooked, working around this conduit, which is pipe the wires run through. And let me go ahead and use the erase tool, clean that up a little bit. And you can just lower the brush size as needed. And let me zoom out. I'll continue working around the conduit and around the trim, and I'll resume the video shortly. Now that I've got everything covered and the excess color erased where it was applied where it didn't need to go, I've zoomed out for a better view. Now what we'll do is lower that layer's opacity to about, let me look at 25%. Okay, that looks about right to me. It's not way too much like it was when we first applied the color, but it does kind of restore some of that color saturation that was lost in the harsh shadow. I might even take it up to 30%. Okay, I think I'll settle on 30%. Now what I'll do is right click this layer that we named Add Color, and merge down, and that merges that layer onto the work layer. And now let's toggle on and off, and we can see a huge difference. Now this image overall is pretty good, but it does have some areas that are a little overexposed and washed out. So as before, we'll duplicate the background layer and rename it Work Layer, or whatever name suits you. Click OK. Now I will be using the Smart Brush to make some improvements here, Smart Brush tool. And what I'll do, I was using it before, so I need to lower the brush diameter just a little bit to about 35 pixels. And now under the All-Purpose menu, click Darken Image and then drag along, and it'll cling to the areas where you want to apply the effect. So that looks pretty good. And let me finish up here. And this, now to deselect, hit Control D or Command D on a Mac. Let's toggle on and off, and you can see a noticeable improvement. Now if you wanted to make it even darker, switch the layer blend mode to multiply, and it'll darken it quite a bit. You'll have to take it down, but it does offer a little more latitude. It'll give you a little more control over end result. So I lowered the opacity to about 35%. Then I merged down. That looks pretty good. And that is about what I'm going for. So the overexposed areas are a little less washed out looking. In this image, we're going to make the top portion look a little less hazy. So duplicate the background layer and rename it. And then under Enhance, we'll go down to the haze removal feature. I paused here because there's also an auto haze removal, but that's not what we'll be using. So now that the dialog's up, you have a before and after comparison, a sensitivity slider, and then a haze reduction slider. Sensitivity's about where I want it. I'm going to take the haze reduction slider up to just a little over halfway and click OK, and let the image process for a few seconds. And then we can see the effects applied, and it introduces a little more drama to the image. The problems corrected in this segment were underexposure, mixed two examples with underexposed and underlit areas, another mixed example with overexposed areas and dehazing. And now let's move on to the next segment.